At a very basic level, divorce mediation is a way of getting divorced where you and your spouse work together cooperatively with the help of a skilled neutral facilitator to create an agreement that works for you. It's a way to get divorced where you are cooperating with one another and you are making decisions for yourselves. But you have help. You have help from somebody who is trained and experienced in the divorce process and in helping people communicate with one another, and who works as a neutral facilitator to help you reach agreements that make sense for you. It's different from other ways of getting divorced in that you are not turning these decisions over to other people, right? Think about it. All divorces start and end exactly the same way. Starts with a decision to get divorced, and it ends eventually with a judge issuing a divorce decree that makes you divorced. But there are many ways of getting from point A to point Z. And more or less, they fall into two categories. There are ways of getting divorced where other people make decisions for you, right?
Right.
And then there are ways where you are making decisions for yourselves. And divorce mediation falls into that second category. So normally when you go to court, right, when you go before a judge, your lawyers, right, are making decisions for you. They are advising you. They're strategizing with you. But ultimately, it's a judge that's going to issue an order that's going to say, this is how it's going to be. But many people don't want that. Many people believe that they can still communicate well enough with their spouse and that nobody knows better than they do what's going to work for their family, and they don't want to turn those decisions over to other people. Divorce mediation gives you a way to do that. You can get help from somebody who is very experienced and trained in helping people communicate with one another, right? And when people are going through divorce, oftentimes communication isn't necessarily at its highest point between two people when they're getting divorced. A skilled divorce mediator can help people, even people who are really not getting along with one another, come up with an agreement that works for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you'll find, if you talk to different mediators, you will find that there is no one way that mediation is practiced. Mediation is practiced in a variety of different styles, and different mediation practices offer different services. But what we have found is that there are 4 things that are true or should be true no matter which mediator you work with or no matter which mediation practice you go to. We call them the 4 pillars of mediation.
Yeah.
And if you know these 4 things, it'll give you a really good idea about how this process is different from the others. So, the 4 pillars of mediation. The first one is that mediation is a voluntary process. It's totally voluntary, which basically means that you can start this process or end this process at any time for any reason. Everybody who is involved in the process wants to be there and is choosing to be there. And Karen, when we work with people and we talk with people, that notion of being a voluntary process comes up a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to also draw the distinction between the voluntary nature of the private mediation versus the mandatory nature of some of the court-involved and court-mandated mediation programs. So in this context, it is a voluntary process. We're in private mediation. We're not affiliated with the court system in any way. And that's kind of nice because it lets everyone still have their own agency. You can make a decision to be involved in the process, but if it's not serving you anymore, you can leave the mediation process. Now, with that being said, I know in our experience here at New Hope, we really do have a pretty high success rate, if you will, helping people through this process. And just the vast majority of people that start the mediation process with our practice do finish it successfully with an agreement that, everyone is happy with, a full and final financial agreement and a parenting plan that is really thoughtful, that really considers everything that the family needs to be able to move forward into this next chapter.
Yeah, and it really makes sense that that's true because it's not a random group of people that mediate.
Yeah.
If you know what you're getting into, if you and your spouse know what the process is ahead of time, and you both see this as a way that you can do things and preferable to going to court, then only people who want to be there are going to be involved in the process.
Yeah.
And so it is not a big surprise that most people who start mediation will finish in the mediation process. I think it's also important to say that there's no one time, no perfect time necessarily to start mediation. People can start the mediation process at very different stages. Many people who come to us are at the very beginning and they haven't even begun talking about any agreements. Some people are already in litigation and they want out. They're looking for a way out. They've tried the litigation process. It is not working for them. It has gotten very expensive. It has gotten very contentious. They're not happy with how other people are making decisions for them, and they step out of the litigation process and into mediation. You can do that. Part of it being a voluntary process is that people can start and stop the process. Most people who start it stay in it and finish it in the mediation process. But being voluntary is one of the keys to why it works so well. So it's a voluntary process. Number two, it's a participant-driven process, right? And what do we mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is different than the court system, because when you're going through that process, you've got an attorney who's, giving you advice. They're sort of walking you through things, but ultimately it's going to be the decision of a judge that's handed down at the end of the day. Although a lot of cases do conclude prior to seeing a judge, that ultimately that's the process that you're going through in litigation. You are leaving the decision up to a judge. But in this process, in mediation, it's quite different. We want to make sure that both of the participants are actively engaged in the process, that they're in control of the resolution, that they are the ones that are generating the options, of course, with the assistance of a skilled mediator to be able to make sure that there aren't other options that they might consider that they haven't thought about. But ultimately, the decision is theirs. The agreement at the end of the day will be what the two of them make of it. And it'll be something that serves both of their interests and is something that can move them forward with both like I said, a comprehensive financial agreement and a parenting plan as well.
One of the ways that I so often describe this to people is when you're starting out your divorce process, it's sort of like you're on top of a mountain and you need a way down. And a lot of people, when they're first starting that process, they take a look over the edge of the mountain, and one of their first thoughts is they could nudge their spouse right off of it. But you realize you're chained together at the ankle. And if you have kids, your kids are attached to you too. So you could nudge your spouse off the mountain, but if you do that, it's going to take you and the kids with you. So you're looking for another way. You'd like to get down the mountain in one piece. And you'd like to get down there relatively quickly and without wasting a lot of time and money. So imagine there's two cars. One car is a normal car. There's a judge sitting at the driver's seat at the steering wheel. The two lawyers are sitting in the back seat. Your lawyer, your spouse's lawyer. You and your spouse, you're sitting in the third seat or in the trunk, depending on how you want to look at it, hoping that your lawyers convince the judge to go down the mountain the way that's best for you. There's another car that looks very different. It has two steering wheels, one on the normal passenger side and one on the driver's side. Your spouse sits in one of those seats and you sit in the other. There's two steering wheels, there's two gas pedals, there's two brake pedals. And your mediator is sitting in the back seat, helping you make sure that you don't drive off the road. If one of you is turning right and the other is turning left, you're not going to get anywhere. Your mediator will help you navigate your way down the mountain. That's the biggest difference between mediation and litigation. It's where you're sitting. You get to decide where you're going. Your mediator is like a really good GPS system that's really good at helping people work their way down the mountain together. So mediation is participant-driven. It's voluntary. The next big pillar is that mediation is confidential and inadmissible in court. This is extremely important. So the basic idea is that what you talk about in mediation, the negotiations that you have in mediation, the ideas that you generate, the things that you're willing to offer, the things that you're willing to do, cannot be used as evidence in court later. If your process breaks down, if you're no longer in mediation and you wind up in court, all of those creative ideas, all of those offers, all of those negotiations are completely inadmissible in court. When you think about it, that's extremely important, right?
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't that way, how many people would mediate?
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
Not a
Maybe
lot.
none.
Yeah.
Right?
I think they feel like their words would be used against them. These thoughts, these creative options would be used against them. So I think that's one of the, the best things about this confidential process is that everybody feels like they don't have to keep their cards so close to the vest. They can sort of lay them down a little bit, talk about what really is important to them. In mediation, we talk about positions and interests. When you're talking about a position, it's, I want the house, but the interest behind that is sort of getting beneath the surface and trying to understand, well, what is it with the house? Why do you need this? Is it financial security? Is it because you want your kids in the same school district? Is it because you love your neighborhood? Is it because the interest rates are so high, and you can't possibly see refinancing a 2.5% mortgage for 7%, interest rate. So all of those things are really important for us to understand in the mediation context, and they don't really come out in litigation. So if we can understand what's driving everybody and what's like a little bit underneath the surface, then that's something that can really help drive the conversation forward and help people reach a resolution that everyone is happy with. But that's, if we're not giving people the opportunity to have those candid, private conversations, then sometimes they don't even come to the surface and we don't have a chance to fully develop these options and ideas that could really be a win-win, for both people.
Right. And the fact that this is inadmissible, the fact that you can't use this as evidence in court, like you said, opens up the lines of communication directly between you and your spouse. And that's one of the reasons why this process is so efficient. One of the reasons why litigation takes so long and is so expensive is because you and your spouse are not talking directly to each other. You're talking through lawyers, expensive lawyers, who are charging for every minute of their time. If you can talk directly to each other, it takes a lot less time. So courts want you to resolve your dispute through mediation. They want you to resolve your dispute outside of court. And one of the ways they do it is by saying you can't talk about anything that you talked about in mediation if you come to court. So it's voluntary, it's participant-driven, and it's inadmissible in court. I guess the other piece of that is confidentiality. I guess this is like the 3.5 pillar. Mm-hmm. It's confidential. So it's a confidential process, which means it's a private process. And I think this is one of the biggest reasons why people choose this process over others, right? Yeah. Why is privacy so important? Well, this is divorce mediation. Divorce is one of the most personal, private experiences that people can go into. And the last thing most people want is for this to be in open court. So people want a process where they can talk about these things without anybody else in the room except their spouse and the mediator. And this process gives you that. This process gives you a way to not have to worry about your private business becoming public.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the last pillar is that the mediator is neutral. So the neutrality of the mediator. And I think here, a lot of people, I think, have a little uncertainty about what that means, about what neutrality means. And I think the first thing I like to reassure people about is that being neutral doesn't mean we don't care. We care a lot. We care a great deal about the participants who come to us. Neutral simply means that we're not taking sides. We're not helping one side against the other. And we're not there to tell the parties what we think they should do or to give our opinion about who we think is right. Neutral means we see ourselves as facilitators. We see the participants as being the ones who know best about how to resolve their divorce. And our job, right, is to bring that out, is to help them bring that out in their conversations with each other, bring out their resolution. So the 4 pillars of mediation are that, number 1, mediation is voluntary. It's a voluntary process. The second pillar is that it's a participant-driven process. The participants are the ones that decide the issues, and the participants are the ones that decide on what the agreement is going to be. The third is that it is an inadmissible and confidential process. What happens in mediation stays in mediation. And number four, the mediator is neutral. The neutrality of the mediator.